The morning sun cast long shadows across the military base as Staff Sergeant Marcus Thompson walked toward the kennels, his boots crunching on the gravel path. He had been dreading this assignment for weeks. Word had spread quickly through the base about Rex, the German shepherd who had become impossible to handle. 3 trainers had already given up on the dog, and 2 had required medical attention after attempting to work with him. Rex had arrived at the base 6 months earlier, a magnificent specimen with coal-black fur and piercing amber eyes. His previous handler, Corporal David Mitchell, had been killed in action during a mission in Afghanistan. The bond between a military dog and handler runs deeper than most people understand, and Rex's world had shattered the moment he lost his partner. Since then, the dog had withdrawn into himself, becoming increasingly aggressive and unpredictable. The kennel supervisor, Captain Rodriguez, met Marcus halfway to the kennels. Her face was grim as she handed him a thick file. "Thompson, I'll be honest with you. We're running out of options with this one. Rex was one of our best detection dogs before the incident. He saved countless lives with Mitchell, but now..." She paused, looking toward the kennels where angry barking could be heard. "Now he won't let anyone near him. He's destroyed 3 kennels, injured 2 handlers, and refuses all commands." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of what he was being asked to do. As the base's most experienced dog handler, he was their last hope before Rex would be deemed too dangerous to keep. The thought of what would happen to the dog after that wasn't something anyone wanted to contemplate. Military dogs weren't just tools. They were family members who had served their country with the same dedication as any soldier. As they approached Rex's kennel, the barking intensified. The dog had been isolated from the others after his last violent episode, housed in a reinforced enclosure designed for the most difficult cases. Through the chain-link fence, Marcus caught his first glimpse of Rex. The dog was magnificent even in his distress, his powerful frame pacing restlessly as his eyes darted between the approaching humans with unmistakable hostility. "He hasn't eaten properly in days," Captain Rodriguez continued, keeping her voice low. "The veterinarian says he's physically healthy, but psychologically, he's completely shut down. Whatever trauma he experienced over there, it's left him unable to trust anyone." Marcus studied the dog's behavior carefully. Rex's ears were pinned back, his tail low, and his entire body radiated tension. These weren't the signs of a naturally aggressive animal, but rather a deeply traumatized one. The dog's eyes held an intelligence that spoke of his training and capabilities, but also a pain that was almost human in its intensity. "What happened to his previous handler?" Marcus asked, though he already suspected the answer would be difficult to hear. Captain Rodriguez's expression darkened. "Mitchell and Rex were on patrol when their convoy hit an IED. Mitchell was killed instantly, but Rex stayed with his body for 6 hours until rescue arrived. The dog wouldn't let anyone approach, not even the medics. They had to sedate him to recover Mitchell's body." She paused, watching Rex through the fence. "Ever since then, he's been like this. It's as if he blames us for taking Mitchell away from him." Marcus felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He had seen this kind of grief before, not just in dogs but in soldiers who had lost their battle buddies. The bond between handler and dog was forged through shared danger, mutual dependence, and unconditional trust. When that bond was severed by death, the surviving partner often struggled to find meaning or purpose. "Has anyone tried a different approach?" Marcus asked, noticing how Rex's aggressive posturing seemed to intensify whenever anyone made direct eye contact. "Maybe something less confrontational?" Captain Rodriguez shook her head. The trainers followed standard protocol. Firm commands, establishing dominance, treating him like any other dog that needs to be brought back in line. But Rex isn't just any other dog. His training was specialized, his relationship with Mitchell was unique, and his trauma runs deeper than anything we've dealt with before. As they talked, Marcus observed Rex's behavior patterns. The dog would pace for several minutes, then stop and stare at the empty space beside him, as if waiting for someone who would never come. It was heartbreaking to watch, and Marcus realized that traditional training methods would never work with this animal. Rex wasn't being defiant. He was mourning. "I need to see his service record," Marcus said finally. "Everything about his training, his missions with Mitchell, his behavioral patterns before the incident. If I'm going to help him, I need to understand who he was before this happened. Captain Rodriguez handed him another file. It's all in there. Fair warning, Thompson. Rex has a distinguished service record. He detected over 30 IEDs, saved hundreds of lives, and received commendations for bravery. Losing him would be a tragedy, but keeping him in this state isn't fair to anyone, especially not to Rex himself. Marcus spent the next hour reading through Rex's file while the dog continued his restless pacing nearby. The records painted a picture of an exceptional animal who had formed an extraordinary partnership with his handler. Mitchell's reports consistently praised Rex's intelligence, loyalty, and courage. The two had been deployed together for over 2 years, working in some of the most dangerous regions of Afghanistan. What struck Marcus most were the personal notes Mitchell had included in his reports. He wrote about Rex's quirks, his favorite toys, his fear of thunderstorms, and his habit of sleeping at the foot of Mitchell's bunk every night. These weren't just official observations. They were the loving comments of someone who considered Rex family. As Marcus read, he began to understand the depth of Rex's loss. The dog hadn't just lost a handler. He had lost his best friend, his protector, and his entire reason for existing. In the military dog program, handlers and dogs were trained to function as a single unit. Rex's identity had been built around his relationship with Mitchell, and now that foundation had been destroyed. A commotion from the direction of the kennels interrupted Marcus's reading. Rex had somehow managed to damage his water bowl and was now standing in a puddle, barking frantically at his own reflection. 2 junior trainers were attempting to enter the kennel to clean up the mess, but Rex's aggressive stance made it clear that any approach would result in violence. "Stand down," Marcus called out, causing both trainers to step back with obvious relief. He approached the kennel slowly, keeping his movements deliberate and non-threatening. Rex immediately focused on him, his barking becoming more intense as this new human dared to approach his territory. Marcus stopped about 10 feet from the fence and sat down on a nearby bench, making himself appear smaller and less threatening. He didn't speak to Rex or attempt to command him. Instead, he simply sat quietly and began reading Mitchell's reports aloud in a calm, steady voice. The effect was almost immediate. Rex's barking decreased in volume, though his posture remained defensive. As Marcus continued reading about the missions Rex and Mitchell had completed together, the dog's ears began to move forward slightly, indicating increased attention rather than fear or aggression. December 15th, Marcus read from one of Mitchell's reports. Rex detected explosive materials buried beneath a pile of debris en route Clearwater. His alert prevented our convoy from triggering what engineers later confirmed was a devastating IED. Rex's actions today saved the lives of 12 soldiers, including myself. This dog continues to prove that his value to our unit cannot be measured. As Marcus read these words, Rex moved closer to the fence, his head tilted slightly, as if trying to understand why this stranger was speaking about his beloved handler. For the first time since arriving at the base, Rex stopped pacing and simply listened. Marcus continued reading for another hour, sharing story after story of Rex's heroism and his bond with Mitchell. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the dog began to relax. His tail remained low, but his aggressive stance softened into something more closely resembling curiosity than hostility. When the sun began to set, Marcus closed the file and stood to leave. Rex watched him go, and, for a moment, their eyes met without the dog looking away in anger or fear. It was a small breakthrough, but Marcus recognized it as significant progress. Tomorrow, he would return and continue the slow process of helping Rex remember who he had been before tragedy changed everything. As Marcus walked back toward the main building, he reflected on what he had learned. Rex wasn't a problem dog who needed to be fixed. He was a grieving warrior who needed to be understood. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but Marcus was determined to help Rex find his way back to the light. The dog's service record proved he had too much to offer to simply give up on him now. Captain Rodriguez was waiting for him at the kennel office, her expression hopeful. "How did it go?" she asked, though she had observed much of the interaction from a distance. "He's not aggressive," Marcus replied, surprising her with his assessment. "He's protective. There's a big difference. Rex is guarding something precious, and Until we help him understand that it's safe to let go, he'll continue to see everyone as a threat to his memories of Mitchell. The captain nodded slowly, beginning to see the situation from a new perspective. So what's your plan? Marcus looked back toward the kennels where Rex had settled down for the first time in weeks. I'm going to help him remember that there's still good in the world, even without Mitchell. But it's going to take time, patience, and a completely different approach than anyone has tried before. The next morning arrived with an unexpected challenge that would test Marcus's new approach to helping Rex. A severe thunderstorm had moved through the area during the night, and the sound of thunder had triggered something deep within the traumatized dog's psyche. When Marcus arrived at the kennels, he found Rex in a state of panic unlike anything the staff had seen before. The dog was pressed against the back corner of his kennel, trembling uncontrollably. His eyes were wide with terror, and he was whimpering in a way that broke the hearts of everyone who heard it. According to the night guard, Rex had been in this condition since the storm began around 3 in the morning. Thunder was always his weakness, Marcus remembered from Mitchell's notes. The handler had written extensively about Rex's fear of loud noises, a common phobia among military dogs who had experienced combat. Mitchell had developed specific techniques to comfort Rex during storms, but now there was no one who knew those methods. Marcus approached the kennel slowly, speaking in the same calm voice he had used the previous day. Hey there, Rex. I know you're scared, buddy. The thunder reminds you of bad things, doesn't it? The dog's ears twitched at the sound of his name, but he remained frozen in fear. Instead of attempting to enter the kennel, Marcus sat down outside and began telling Rex about Mitchell again, focusing specifically on the reports that mentioned their quiet moments together. Mitchell wrote that you liked to sleep under his desk during storms. He said you would rest your head on his boots and feel safe knowing he was there. As Marcus spoke, Rex's trembling gradually subsided. The dog's breathing became less rapid, though he remained pressed against the wall. Marcus could see the internal struggle taking place as Rex fought between his fear of the storm and his growing recognition that this human was different from the others. Dr. Sarah Chun, the base veterinarian, arrived to check on Rex's condition. She had been monitoring the dog's physical and psychological state since his arrival, documenting his decline and the various failed attempts at rehabilitation. His stress levels are off the charts, she told Marcus quietly. If we can't find a way to help him soon, I'm going to have to recommend more drastic measures. Marcus understood the implication. Military dogs who couldn't be rehabilitated faced limited options, none of them pleasant. The thought of giving up on Rex after seeing his service record and understanding his trauma was unacceptable to Marcus. There had to be a way to reach this remarkable animal. What if we tried something completely different? Marcus suggested to Dr. Chun. Instead of treating him like a problem dog, what if we treated him like a veteran with PTSD? His symptoms are remarkably similar to what I've seen in soldiers who've experienced severe trauma. Dr. Chun considered this perspective carefully. As a veterinarian with experience treating military working dogs, she had noticed parallels between canine and human responses to combat stress. You might be onto something. Traditional dog training focuses on dominance and submission, but trauma therapy requires building trust and creating safe spaces. They decided to implement a radically different approach. Instead of trying to force Rex into compliance, they would focus on helping him process his grief and gradually rebuild his confidence. Marcus would spend hours each day simply sitting near Rex's kennel, reading Mitchell's reports, and talking about the good times the handler and dog had shared. The breakthrough came on the 3rd day of this new approach. As Marcus was reading about a particularly successful mission where Rex had saved a school full of children by detecting explosives, the dog slowly moved toward the fence. For the first time since Mitchell's death, Rex made voluntary contact with a human being, pressing his nose against the chain link near where Marcus sat. That's it, Rex, Marcus said softly, fighting back the emotion in his voice. You remember being a hero, don't you? You remember saving lives and making Mitchell proud. Rex's tail gave a tiny wag, the first positive gesture anyone had seen from him in months. From that moment forward, progress accelerated. Rex began eating regularly again, though he would only accept food when Marcus was present. The dog started responding to basic commands, not out of obedience, but seemingly out of a desire to please this human who spoke so lovingly about his lost handler. Marcus introduced new elements to Rex's daily routine, always with Mitchell's memory as the foundation. He brought toys that Mitchell had mentioned in his reports, played music that the handler had enjoyed, and even acquired some of Mitchell's personal items that had been stored with his effects. Each familiar scent and object helped Rex reconnect with positive memories rather than dwelling solely on the trauma of loss. The other trainers and staff members watched this transformation with amazement. Rex, who had been written off as hopelessly aggressive, was gradually returning to his former self under Marcus's patient guidance. The dog's intelligence and training began to shine through as his emotional wounds started to heal. However, the real test came when Captain Rodriguez decided it was time to evaluate Rex's potential for returning to active duty. "We need to know if he can work with other handlers," she told Marcus. "Your connection with him is remarkable, but Rex needs to be able to function as part of the broader military dog program." This presented a significant challenge. Rex had bonded with Marcus specifically because of his connection to Mitchell's memory, but transferring that trust to other handlers would require a delicate approach. Marcus knew that rushing this step could undo all the progress they had made. The first attempt to introduce Rex to another trainer was a disaster. Despite weeks of improvement, Rex immediately reverted to his aggressive behavior when Sergeant Williams approached his kennel. The dog's progress had been real, but it was still fragile and dependent on very specific circumstances. Marcus realized that Rex's healing was still incomplete. The dog had learned to trust him, but that trust hadn't generalized to other humans. Rex was still protecting himself from further loss by refusing to form new bonds. This was a common pattern among trauma survivors, both human and canine. "We need to change our approach again," Marcus told Dr. Chun during their weekly progress meeting. "Rex isn't just mourning Mitchell. He's afraid of caring about anyone else because he knows how much it hurts to lose someone you love." Dr. Chin nodded in understanding. "So how do we help him overcome that fear?" Marcus had been thinking about this problem for days. "We show him that it's possible to honor Mitchell's memory while still opening his heart to new relationships. Rex needs to understand that loving someone new doesn't mean betraying his bond with Mitchell." This insight led to another shift in Rex's treatment. Marcus began bringing other staff members to their daily sessions, always introducing them in the context of Mitchell's story. Mitchell wrote that he trusted these people, Marcus would tell Rex. He worked alongside them, and he would want them to take care of you now. Slowly, Rex began to tolerate the presence of others during his sessions with Marcus. The dog's body language remained cautious, but the aggressive displays decreased significantly. It was clear that Rex was processing these new relationships through the lens of his loyalty to Mitchell's memory. The most emotional moment came when Marcus brought Mitchell's fellow soldiers to meet Rex. These men had served alongside both Mitchell and Rex, and they carried their own grief over the loss of their comrade. When Rex saw them, something in his demeanor shifted. These weren't strangers. They were part of his pack, part of the family that had been torn apart by tragedy. One soldier, Corporal Jackson, knelt by the fence and spoke directly to Rex. "Hey there, boy. You remember me, don't you? I was there when you found that IED near the marketplace. You saved my life that day, Rex. Mitchell was so proud of you." Rex approached the fence and allowed Corporal Jackson to touch his nose through the chain link. For the first time since Mitchell's death, Rex was voluntarily interacting with someone other than Marcus. It was a powerful moment that demonstrated the dog's capacity for healing and his deep intelligence in recognizing friend from foe. This breakthrough opened new possibilities for Rex's rehabilitation. If he could learn to trust Mitchell's fellow soldiers, perhaps he could eventually work with a new handler. The key was ensuring that any new relationship honored the memory of what he had lost while offering hope for the future. As weeks turned into months, Rex's transformation became a source of inspiration throughout the base. Other handlers came to observe Marcus's techniques, hoping to apply similar approaches to dogs struggling with their own traumas. Rex had become not just a success story, but a teaching case that would benefit countless other military working dogs. The dog's physical conditioning improved dramatically as his mental state stabilized. Rex began participating in light training exercises, demonstrating that his skills and instincts remained intact despite his traumatic experience. His nose was as sharp as ever, his intelligence undiminished, and his courage, though tested by grief, was gradually returning. Captain Rodriguez scheduled regular evaluations to track Rex's progress, and each assessment showed continued improvement. The dog who had once been considered irredeemably damaged was proving that with the right approach, even the deepest psychological wounds could heal. Rex's journey was far from over, but the foundation for his recovery was now solid. Marcus knew that the ultimate test would be Rex's ability to work with a new handler in real-world conditions. But, for now, it was enough that the dog was eating, sleeping, and showing interest in the world around him again. The aggressive, traumatized animal who had arrived months earlier was slowly being replaced by the confident, capable working dog he had always been meant to be. The moment of truth arrived on a crisp autumn morning when Captain Rodriguez announced that Rex would undergo his final evaluation. After months of careful rehabilitation, the decision had to be made whether the dog could return to active duty or would need to be retired from service. The pressure was immense, not just for Rex, but for everyone who had invested in his recovery. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility as he prepared Rex for what could be their last training session together. Over the past months, their bond had grown stronger than he had ever anticipated. Rex had become more than just another dog he was helping. The German Shepherd had taught Marcus about resilience, loyalty, and the profound impact that loss could have on even the strongest hearts. The evaluation would be conducted by Colonel Patricia Hayes, a veteran officer who specialized in military working dog programs. She had a reputation for being fair but uncompromising in her standards. Rex would need to demonstrate not only his technical skills, but also his ability to work with handlers other than Marcus. "Remember, Rex," Marcus whispered to the dog as they walked toward the training facility. "Mitchell would be proud of how far you've come. Today, we show everyone what a true warrior looks like." Rex's transformation over the past months had been remarkable. The aggressive, traumatized animal who had terrorized handlers and destroyed kennels was now walking calmly beside Marcus, alert and confident. His coat gleamed with health, his eyes were clear and focused, and his bearing reflected the dignity of a dog who had rediscovered his purpose. Colonel Hayes arrived with a team of evaluators and a new handler, Lieutenant Sarah Martinez, who had been specifically chosen for this test. Martinez was known for her gentle but firm approach with dogs, and her experience working with trauma cases made her the ideal candidate to potentially become Rex's new partner. The first part of the evaluation involved basic obedience and commands. Rex performed flawlessly, responding to Marcus's instructions with the precision that had made him such an effective military working dog. His sits were sharp, his stays were solid, and his recall was immediate. It was clear that his training and intelligence had not been affected by his psychological trauma. However, the real challenge came when Lieutenant Martinez approached to take over handling duties. This was the moment everyone had been dreading. Would Rex revert to his aggressive behavior when faced with working with someone new? Or would the months of careful rehabilitation hold firm? As Martinez took the leash from Marcus, Rex's body language shifted noticeably. His ears went back slightly, and his tail lowered, but he didn't display the aggressive posturing that had characterized his earlier interactions with strangers. Instead, he looked confused and uncertain, glancing back and forth between Marcus and his new handler. "Easy, Rex," Marcus said softly. "Lieutenant Martinez is here to work with you. She's one of the good ones, just like Mitchell was." Martinez demonstrated her skill by immediately recognizing Rex's emotional state. Instead of forcing commands or trying to assert dominance, she knelt down and spoke to him in Mitchell's voice patterns, which Marcus had taught her during preparation sessions. "Good boy, Rex. Let's do some work together." The effect was subtle but significant. Rex's posture relaxed slightly as he recognized the familiar communication style. Martinez had studied Mitchell's reports extensively and had learned to mimic his tone and command structure. While Rex clearly knew this wasn't Mitchell, the familiar approach helped him feel more secure. The detection exercise began with a series of hidden explosive simulants placed throughout the training facility. This was Rex's specialty, the skill that had made him legendary during his deployment with Mitchell. As soon as the search command was given, years of training and instinct took over. Rex's nose immediately went to work, systematically searching the area with the methodical precision that had saved countless lives overseas. His focus was absolute, his movements confident and purposeful. When he detected the first simulant, his alert was textbook perfect, sitting calmly beside the hidden device and looking back at his handler for confirmation. Colonel Hayes made notes on her clipboard, clearly impressed with Rex's technical performance. But the real test was yet to come. Martinez would need to guide Rex through increasingly complex scenarios, building the trust and communication necessary for effective partnership. The second phase involved a mock patrol scenario where Rex and Martinez would work together to clear a simulated building. This exercise required not only detection skills, but also the kind of instinctive communication between dog and handler that could mean the difference between life and death in real combat situations. As they approached the training building, Rex's demeanor shifted into full working mode. His ears were forward, his body alert but relaxed, and his attention was completely focused on the task ahead. Martinez gave him the search command, and Rex immediately began systematically clearing each room. The partnership wasn't perfect. There were moments of hesitation where Rex seemed unsure of Martinez's signals, and times when his responses were slightly delayed as he processed commands from someone other than Marcus. But these minor issues were exactly what would be expected during a first working session with a new handler. What impressed Colonel Hayes most was Rex's willingness to work despite his uncertainty. The dog who had once been paralyzed by fear and aggression was now pushing through his discomfort to perform his duties. It was a testament to both his character and the effectiveness of his rehabilitation. The final test was the most challenging. Rex and Martinez were presented with a scenario involving multiple hidden devices, civilian distractors, and time pressure. This simulated the kind of high-stress environment where Rex had excelled with Mitchell and where his skills would be most needed if he returned to active duty. Rex rose to the challenge magnificently. Despite working with an unfamiliar handler, he systematically located each device while ignoring the civilian distractors and maintaining focus under pressure. His performance was not quite at the level he had achieved with Mitchell, but it was more than adequate for active duty requirements. When the evaluation concluded, Colonel Hayes called Rex, Martinez, and Marcus together for the final assessment. Rex has demonstrated remarkable recovery from severe psychological trauma, she began. His technical skills remain excellent, and while his partnership with Lieutenant Martinez will require continued development, I see no reason why he cannot return to active duty. The relief in the room was palpable. Rex seemed to sense the positive energy and allowed Martinez to pet him for the first time. It was a small gesture, but it represented a huge step forward in their developing relationship. Marcus felt a mixture of pride and sadness as he realized that his intensive work with Rex was coming to an end. The dog had become like family to him, and knowing that Rex would soon be deployed with a new handler brought both joy for the dog's recovery and personal loss for their relationship. Over the following weeks, Rex began intensive training with Lieutenant Martinez. Marcus remained involved in the transition, helping to transfer the trust and communication patterns that Rex had developed. It was a delicate process that required patience from everyone involved. The breakthrough in Rex and Martinez's partnership came during a particularly challenging training exercise. A simulated explosion occurred near their position, triggering Rex's trauma response for the first time in months. Instead of reverting to aggressive behavior, Rex looked to Martinez for guidance and comfort. Martinez, drawing on everything she had learned about Rex's history and triggers, immediately provided the calm, steady presence that the dog needed. She used the same soothing techniques that Mitchell had employed during thunderstorms, speaking quietly and maintaining physical contact until Rex's anxiety subsided. From that moment forward, Rex began to truly trust Martinez. He realized that she, like Mitchell, would protect him and guide him through difficult situations. The bond between them grew stronger with each training session, built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared purpose. When deployment orders came through, Rex was ready. He had formed a solid partnership with Martinez, demonstrated his continued excellence in detection work, and proven that his traumatic experiences had not diminished his courage or effectiveness. The dog who had once been written off as hopeless was returning to the field as a fully operational military working dog. The farewell between Marcus and Rex was emotional for both man and dog. Rex seemed to understand that this was goodbye, approaching Marcus one last time and pressing against his legs in the way he had done so many times during their sessions together. Marcus knelt down and spoke quietly to the dog who had taught him so much about healing and resilience. "You're going to do great things, Rex," Marcus whispered. "Mitchell would be so proud of who you've become. Take care of Lieutenant Martinez, and let her take care of you." As Rex walked away with his new handler, his tail was high and his step was confident. The transformation was complete. The broken, aggressive animal who had arrived months earlier was gone, replaced by a proud, capable working dog ready to serve his country once again. Colonel Hayes later wrote in her report that Rex's rehabilitation represented a breakthrough in understanding how to treat psychological trauma in military working dogs. The techniques developed during his recovery would be implemented across the entire program, potentially helping hundreds of other dogs who had experienced similar traumas. Rex and Lieutenant Martinez deployed to Afghanistan 3 weeks later, where they would serve with distinction for the remainder of their tour. Rex's detection skills saved numerous lives, and his partnership with Martinez became a model for other handler teams. The dog had not only recovered from his trauma but had used that experience to become even more effective in his mission. The story of Rex's recovery spread throughout the military working dog community, becoming a source of hope for other handlers dealing with traumatized animals. It proved that with patience, understanding, and the right approach, even the most damaged dogs could heal and return to service. Marcus continued his work with military dogs, applying the lessons he had learned from Rex to help other animals struggling with trauma. Each success reminded him of the remarkable German shepherd who had taught him that healing was possible, even in the darkest circumstances. Rex's legacy lived on not just in the lives he saved during his continued service, but in the new understanding of how to help military working dogs overcome psychological trauma. His story became a testament to the resilience of the human-animal bond and the power of compassionate, patient care in healing even the deepest wounds. The dog who no one could control had found his way back to being a hero, proving that sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquest, but from the courage to trust and love again after devastating loss.